Hello, hello, and welcome to another podcast episode of Overpowering Emotions, where I talk all things big emotions, emotion regulation. Today, I want to talk about resistance to change. And it could be even from, when a kiddo's refusing help or support that we're trying to provide. Why is it that they're resisting? Even when they know it's good for them, right? We're just there to support. Everything that we do comes from a loving place. Resistance is a natural human response. At its very core, it's about autonomy, right? Our need to feel in control of our own choices. So think about a toddler who insists, I do it myself, right? Even when they clearly need help. Or we could just do it in 1 second as they're struggling. This need for independence starts from a very young age and it never goes away. It doesn't go away with age. Even as adults, we resist help, especially when it feels like someone's trying to take control over us, right? Even our parents, when we are grown adults ourselves and they're saying you should sleep and you should do this, we're just like we get irritated, right? Just calm down. We get irritated, right? You don't tell me what to do. So you've probably experienced this yourself. Someone gives you that advice you know is right, but instead you're taking it, aggressively. You're defending against it. You double down and reject it. So why do we do that? Right? So, to help us keep our frustration in check, resistance, it's not about rejecting help, it's about rejecting the feeling of being controlled. That's the big piece of it here, right? So, it's all about control. Reactance, it's the psychological pushback that we feel when we think our freedom is being restricted. And that's why we see this counter will develop from a very young age. And it shows up in lots of different ways. With parents, you might tell, your kid to go clean up their room and suddenly they're refusing, even though they were fine to do it 5 minutes ago. And then you try to calm a child down and they get even more upset. It can show up in relationships. Maybe you're offering your partner or friend advice and they're immediately shutting down or defending themselves, right? Maybe you're trying to help a loved one manage their emotions. It's okay, just breathe, but they're digging in their heels and refusing to talk. Probably shows up in other areas like in teaching or leadership. Maybe you're trying, I get this all the time. You're trying to guide students to make a better choice, but then they're pushing back because they feel like it's criticism, right? Actually, just recently, I had a student who was in practicum and the instructor was saying, this is a serious ethical breach. And they didn't handle it very good. They felt that they were being attacked and the instructor was being biased, right? That's a problem. But we do see this counter will or a team who's resisting changes at work because they feel like they're not being heard in the decision-making process. So at its core, we see it. It's not just in our kids. This reactance is a protective mechanism. When people feel that their autonomy is being threatened, their instinct is to push back. And we saw this even with COVID, with the masking, for example. I bet there was a lot of people who would have been willing to wear the mask. Truly, if we had just worn the mask for a month, we wouldn't have had the big outbreak that we did. However, people felt like their autonomy was being under attack, right? Their control and autonomy was being taken away. So they pushed back. So even when the advice is logical, even if you secretly agree with it, even if, you want to be helpful and you want to do the right thing, we might push back. So we got to remember this, right? They might resist any feedback and support because accepting it feels like giving up control. No one likes to be told what to do, certainly, right? Doesn't matter how old you are. So if people are naturally resisting help when they feel controlled, when it comes to students and children and, the kids we're working with, our own kids, how do we help them in a way that they're actually going to take up that help, right? They're actually going to accept it. Well, we do know obviously choices are better than directives. So instead of saying you need to, whatever it is, maybe it's calm down or I don't know, clean your room, whatever it is, ask open-ended questions. Like when would be the best time to do homework? Or maybe be really tentative, right? Like would going for a walk be helpful, right? Instead of saying calm down. What do you think would be helpful? I wonder if going for a help. Actually, there's a mentor that I've worked with who told me a story just about flossing, right? And he was so resistant against flossing, and the his dentist was saying, you must do this, and was telling him all the risks. And every time he went into the dentist office, the dentist was sort of berating him for not flossing. And then one day there was this really young, sort of surfer dude hygienist, new guy who just started, and he's like, I wonder if you've tried flossing in the shower. I wonder what would happen. That was it. That's all he did. And my mentor is like, oh, I wonder. And then went and did it. And years later, he's still flossing every single day. He's doing it in the shower, right? So just taking off the pressure to make it their choice, being tentative, I wonder, right? Now they're more likely to engage. That's really helpful. When kids have choices, that need for autonomy is satisfied. And then they're more likely to engage because you're not telling them, right? We definitely want to validate, normalize. We're not getting rid of that. So, validating their feelings. I know this feels really unfair. This sucks. Picking up who sucks. Or math, this quadratic equations, these polynomials. It's understandable that you're frustrated. This is really tough. I can see you're struggling. We want to validate that. We're not going to say, "Oh, it's so hard. Go away. Don't do it anymore." No, we're still maintaining those boundaries, like I had mentioned last week. But we want to make sure that they feel heard and understood. When they feel heard and understood, that need for autonomy is satisfied, right? They're not feeling like they're controlled and they're more open to support that we might be giving. I always love using collaborative problem solving. So instead of demanding, you need to get ready for school, asking those open-ended questions. What do you think would make our mornings less stressful? How can we leave the house still loving each other with a smile on our face? Let's brainstorm all of our ideas and let's make a plan together and we'll try it. We'll experiment today, see what works. And then tonight we'll see what worked, what didn't work, and we'll tweak it for tomorrow. So when we're trying to work together and kids are feeling heard and they're actually seeing that their opinion matters, they're less likely to resist. Okay, so that's really important. And we always want to model, I think I say this pretty much in every episode. We always want to model what we want to see. So instead of forcing calm, be calm. Instead of demanding emotional regulation, show up, show them how you regulate your emotions. I think that's really important, right? I talk a lot about how people naturally mirror like other people's behaviors. So if you're calm, they're more likely to stay calm too. So we really want to make sure we're focusing on that. At the end of the day, just always remember that change is uncomfortable, right? And so you changing your reactions and changing how you're responding, we might see more behaviors. Change is uncomfortable. And sometimes the more we push others to try to change, the harder they're going to push back. So we just got to let that go a little bit. But when we're respecting their autonomy, we're validating their feeling and their perspectives, we're guiding and wondering rather than forcing them, we're really creating an environment where that real emotional growth happens. And that's what the focus of this sort of mini series that I've got going on right now, building these emotion regulation skills. I'm getting really micromanagey here, or not micromanagey, but very granular in these very little things that we could be doing to support our kids' emotional growth. Now, I do want to add too that we're not letting them walk all over us. And I think that that's where parents feel like when I do this validating, I'm letting them, get away with whatever it is that they want to do. We're not letting them off the hook. We are setting those expectations and we're consistently following through with them, but we don't have to fight about it. Right? That's really important. Now, one piece of all of this, helping without them making feel weak, making them not feel incapable or dependent, how we help really matters. Okay. So, it's sort of this invisible support, small, sort of subtle ways that we might be able to help, but don't take away someone's sense of control or independence. Actually, as I say this, I'm just thinking of Penny from Inspector Gadget, right? Penny is always there helping Inspector Gadget every step of the way, literally every step of the way. But he doesn't know it, right? It's this sort of invisible, subtle help. So when our help does backfire, it's not because they don't want the support. Usually they actually do, right? But they just don't want to give up their control or to lose face or to feel inadequate or whatever else is going on. So it's when the help is given the wrong way that can really feel disempowering. And that's where they feel incapable, inadequate, and they become dependent. So if someone's jumping in too soon to help, it's sending the message, you can't handle this. And if you've listened to me talk at all, when we look at anxiety and kids who aren't resilient, it's because they don't believe they can handle it, whatever it is, right? Going on sleepovers, going on the outing, putting their hand up in class, whatever it is. And if we're always jumping in and jumping in and jumping in, they're never feeling like they can handle it. Same thing with advice. If we're jumping in and giving advice without them asking us for it, it can feel like criticism instead of support, even though we mean well, right? The way we're helping can really undermine their confidence, and we're not building that confidence. So that's why invisible support can be so powerful. It's allowing them to succeed without feeling dependent or incapable or ashamed. So it's really the difference between here, let me do this for you, which signals that they're incapable, and helping them to succeed on their own, right? So again, like just think if you know Inspector Gadget, that's perfect, right? Who's just going through his day thinking he's the bomb, doing everything perfectly, but Penny or the dog is, invisible there supporting him. So let's say a child struggling with tying their shoes. I see this all the time. We jump in because we're on we got to get out the door. And so we're jumping in too soon. We're taking away their opportunity to learn. And now it's probably a fight. And now they're probably never going to want to do the tying in the first place, right? They're just going to go outside without tying up their shoes. It's just going to become this bigger problem. So, what would invisible support look like? Well, maybe it's loosening the laces a little bit first. So they get a little bit of a win because maybe it's just that they're just not, they can't get their foot in and it's too tight, right? So maybe we're loosening so they can get their foot in. We're giving that help without them even realizing it. Okay. So it's about boosting their success without taking over, right? Without threatening their sense of autonomy and self-worth. That's really important. So it's support without calling attention to it, right? We'll feel more confident. They're more likely to succeed. We're going to have stronger relationships because we're not fighting all the time, right? And it's not going to feel so burdensome. So it's really scaffolding. In education, that's what we call it. We're scaffolding these skills. You don't build the house for someone, you're just giving them the tools to do it themselves. And this works for everyone. It really does in every relationship. So with kids, another example would be forcing them to eat their vegetables. But maybe they're going to help cook. Maybe they're going to help make the menu. So we're going to make sure that, they're going to have their input and they're going to be more likely to eat whatever it is that they made. Instead of reminding a teen to study, maybe we're creating a desirable place, a quiet, distraction-free space that looks amazing to go into. So they're choosing to study on their own. I actually just found a Tiffany lamp. My daughter was probably born in the wrong century. She should have been born in like Victorian times. But she loves these Tiffany lamps and they are very expensive. But I happened to find one at a flea market and I bought one for her and we created this study space and she loves it now. She loves going down there and like opening her books. And we got her these like old timey light bulbs to go in it. And like it's amazing just the power of this one little lamp. So how can we create that space? And maybe it's them, like thinking about what that space is and we're helping, with that piece. So, a key phrase really to kind of keep in the back of our mind is let me know if you need me. Instead of you should do this, I'm here for you, right? Instead of saying you should take a break, maybe you're bringing them a cup of tea and then you're walking away. If they're stressed, maybe you can do small things like run a small errand. Maybe you can handle a task without announcing it. Instead of correcting every little mistake, maybe it's gentle nudges. Maybe it's circling an area of improvement, right? Instead of fixing it for them. So now they have to think about, and I do that when I'm reading reports or assignments, I often just highlight. So now they have to think about why did she highlight this? I'm not just telling them, right? They need to actually start thinking about why did Caroline highlight this? So tapping into some of that critical thinking. So this week's challenge, there's a couple of things. We want to make sure we're experimenting. It's always experimenting and see what works. Every child is different, every family is different, every classroom is different. So maybe you can try practicing offering choices if you're not already doing that instead of giving instructions, offering some choices. We don't want to give too many choices though because that's just going to exhaust the working memory and the emotion regulation system. So we do need to be careful with that. But that is a skill for us to strengthen, right? Like identify one situation where a kiddo tends to resist, or maybe a partner tends to resist. Instead of telling them what to do, try giving them choices that lead to the same goal. So we're going to validate, maybe we're going to collaborate, we're going to observe their response. Did they engage more or did they push back less, right? Those are good indicators to say maybe that's a route to keep trying. Maybe you're going to pick one situation where you usually offer help and try to see where the resistance is coming from. Is it because they're feeling controlled? Maybe you're trying an invisible support strategy just to help set up success without pointing it out. right? So, looking for small changes, do they seem more confident? The best support is the kind that really helps support them achieve success without taking away their confidence. So that's going to be really helpful. I'll leave it there for today. Make sure you help those kiddos be bold and courageous. Definitely check out the show notes because I'm going to have some homework in there. I'm going to have some reflection questions for you to think about, and experiment. Try one of these things, and I will see you next time.